Hello and welcome to our panel. My name is Andrea Sinus, NXUnite team member at Nexus Marketing and your moderator for today's panel. Today's panel topic is Smarter Solutions, Stronger Bonds, Strategies that Elevate Donor Relationships. As usual, before I introduce our panelists and we jump into this topic, I do have some logistics to cover. If you're new to us, NXUnite by Nexus Marketing is a powerful community platform built to connect and empower professionals in the mission-driven sector. Whether you're looking for upcoming events, trusted tools and partners, insightful podcasts, or industry thought leaders to follow, NXUnite has you covered. We also host webinars, live demos, and panels such as this with expert voices who are making an impact. Today's panel will run for about 45 minutes, and we've built in time for both curated questions from our team and live questions from you, our audience, tuning in right now. So feel free to submit your questions in the chat at any point during the conversation. We'll dedicate the second half of the panel to answering as many of them as we can. Finally, before we jump in, we just want to say thank you. We're thrilled to have you here with us, part of this mission-driven community, and we truly appreciate you taking the time to learn and engage with today's topic. And on behalf of the NXUnite team, thank you again for joining us. Now let's meet our incredible panelists. I'd like to first introduce Erin Straza, CEO and Chief Donor Engagement Strategist at Erin Straza Nonprofit Consulting. Erin Straza's agency attracts clients from across the country, serving people worldwide. As a Chief Donor Engagement Strategist, Erin specializes in equipping nonprofit teams in engagement and messaging strategies that make their mission irresistible to donors. Clients turn to Erin for strategic messaging, seasonal and capital campaign development, donor journey planning, and communications planning. As a result, nonprofits enjoy budgetary growth and greater missional impact. Erin, welcome to the panel.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
For our next panelist, I'd like to introduce Mark Montoya, president of Akoya. Mark Montoya is currently serving as president of Akoya, a software solution for community and private foundations. With a deep commitment to identifying and seizing opportunities for improvement across product, process, and people, Mark ensures that Akoya consistently delivers exceptional service and innovative solutions. He served as Chief Operating Officer and Interim President and CEO at the Community Foundation for Southern Arizona. During his tenure, Mark was instrumental in all aspects of the foundation's work, contributing significantly to its growth and the philanthropic impact in Southern Arizona. Welcome to the panel, Mark.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here.
Our third panelist is Michelle McDonald, Chief Service Officer at CDS Global. Michelle McDonald is the Chief Service Officer at CDS Global, responsible for business operations and account management serving nonprofit and higher education clients. She brings a strong focus of operational excellence on each consumer touchpoint with our best-in-class data capture technology, payment processing, omni-channel solutions, and fulfillment. Additionally, she oversees the strategy for machine learning and AI to create actionable data insights. Thank you for your time, Michelle.
Thank you, Andrea. It's great to be here.
And finally, we have Ronald Pruitt, founder of For a Good Cause. Ronald is the president and founder of For a Good Cause, the fundraising CRM that makes recurring monthly giving a breeze for small nonprofits. For over 25 years, Ronald has had the joy of doing what he loves, building online solutions that make a difference in the world. He's helped raise millions of dollars online for small nonprofits across the country. Ronald, welcome to the panel.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, now that we've introduced everyone, I'm really excited to launch our first question of the day, and we'll have Erin start us off. For the first question, how have donor expectations evolved in recent years, and what does that shift mean for how nonprofits build and sustain meaningful relationships?
Well, that is a really good question because as I think about donor expectations, I'm also thinking of myself, right? We are all people who give and invest in causes, and my expectations have shifted. And so, even from my own perspective, I think about how I have access to all kinds of information and data, whether it's about the nonprofit, their impact, who it is that they are serving, what they're hoping to accomplish in the years ahead. Like there's all this data and all this information. And I want to have ready access to that information so that I can make the best decision of who I want to partner with and which missions my heart aligns with the best. And so I have those expectations. And then from the nonprofit side, how do you present that information and provide that access to that information so that donors can understand and see how their investment is changing lives? And so there's that balance there between I want all this information, and then the nonprofit has to actually provide the avenue where that connection can be made. So many nonprofits are struggling to provide that access and give that to donors. And I think that the meaningful relationship part is making sure that the nonprofits are connecting with people in the human way, even though we want the data and the information, by presenting it in a very warm and human way. I think that it sets that nonprofit apart, and it helps them to build those relationships that they really want to have for the long term, even though it is the tech and the data that can help to sway and influence donors to make those decisions. It's that relational component that is really effective and makes the difference in the long term.
Thanks for the insight, Erin. Mark, anything to add here to what Erin said?
Yeah, I really like that meaningful connections.
Mm.
People want to connect with others
Mhm.
and want to have meaningful impact, but they also don't want to be alone in that. And especially in this time, they want a tribe. They want to be associated with something bigger than themselves. And I think when you can make those meaningful connections through mission and purpose, it's super important in establishing that trust. So, how can you get them involved beyond just asking for a gift? Come see what we're doing, use storytelling, talk about people similar to themselves, and find that meaningful connection.
Thanks for that, Mark. Michelle, anything to add as well?
I think connection and community are the two words that are a theme here, and I think those are two very much to stress. I think donors are looking for instant communications and connections and with low friction. And so you have to meet the donors where they are. And there's so much technology out there that you can take advantage of, but you also want to make sure that you're not inundating them with, so much communication that it's not, that it's not connecting with them. So it's really important to make sure that it's a personalized engagement, and that there is a way that who that donor is, how that donor came to you, what they are looking to do with your organization, whether it's volunteer, but you're trying to continue to have some type of emotional resonance with them, and and being able to meet them where they are, I think, is critical. Even though you're trying to make it convenient, you don't want to lose that personal aspect.
Thanks for that, Michelle. Ronald, anything to finally add?
Yeah, I just love what everybody's saying about community and belonging. I think that's so important. And actually, if you look at across the nonprofit landscape right now, the data is backing that up. If you look at like the 2025 M&R benchmark study, what is working right now as fundraising is recurring giving. That's up 5%, whereas one-time gifts are completely flat over a year. So what are donors wanting? They're wanting simplicity, automatic giving, and to belong inside a community. So if you've got a monthly giving program that you're starting, that can be that community that donors can join and get all the sense of belonging and all the things that you're talking about, especially if you're doing the right stewardship to keep them long term. I mean, donors have just been trained on subscriptions. The average US consumer right now has about 12 subscriptions that they're paying for every single month. I think I have a lot more than that myself. So it just naturally trains them that, oh, wow, I can have a subscription to your mission and I can belong to that club, that community that you're creating. So I love what everybody else is saying, and the data is backing this up for what donors want right now. So,
All right, we're off to a great start with our first question. We'll proceed to our next question for today's event, and we'll have Mark answer this one first. As technology and data play increasingly significant roles in fundraising, how can nonprofits utilize them to strengthen, not replace, the personal connections that donors value most?
That's a great question. And again, it's not about replacing. It is a tool in your toolbox or tools, and there are so many tools out there. And I think it's also it's identifying the tools that will be most helpful, but really looking at what is our strategy? Where do we want to go with this? And when we're talking about connections, what tools will make that meaningful connection? Using data, you can find data points. Are there donors out there that have similar interests? What is our communication strategy? How is that communication strategy? Is it effective? And you can use data points in order to do that. So again, these are tools within your toolkit, but not to see a replacement of the personal relationship. In fact, I would stress using those tools and enhancing your personal relationships as much as you can, and really focusing on that emotional intelligence, using empathy and trust in your interactions. So while you're using the toolkit to identify maybe communication strategies, when you're having those relationships, it's really bringing that personal aspect to the conversations and communication.
Thanks for starting us off, Mark. Michelle.
Yes, I think, one of the challenges that nonprofits have today is there is so much data, and in some cases it's kind of siloed. So the most important strategy is just trying to unify your data and bring it together, so then you can take advantage of tools such as, predictive modeling that will help you to even personalize that engagement even more. So all of a sudden, you're not worried about replacing, humanity. You're actually doing your stewardship in making sure that you have that engagement be even more personalized by knowing more about that donor and what that donor's attributes and behaviors indicate that you should communicate to them, what you should put in front of them to continue that engagement. So I think it's the biggest challenge still is bringing all that to get data together, and then once you have all that data, what do I do with it to create a very personalized engagement?
Great points there, Michelle. What about you, Ronald? Anything to add there?
I love what Michelle just said. I mean, every click, every reply to a survey, every gift, that's a data point that's going in your CRM and gives you an opportunity to tag that person, to put them into a particular grouping. What are their preferences? Do they like email? Do they like direct mail? How do they like to be addressed? What are their interests, so allow you to segment and personalize. And the more, and like Aaron was saying before, we're donors too. The more that I am seen, the more that I'm recognized for what my interests are and why I'm giving to this nonprofit, the closer connection that I can have. And as Mark's saying, the technology is not meant to replace the human. You can take little things like receipts and reminders and tasks that have to be done that can be done by a computer. Let the computer do that. Let AI do that. It leaves you time to do the human things that you need to be doing, like that thank you video that you can make, the handwritten card that you can send out. Technology is it's there to kind of remind and remember, and the humans can take care of the stuff that donors really want. So
Thanks for that, Ronald. And Erin.
Well, that I agree with everything that's been said here. And I want to piggyback on what Ronald was just saying about how there are human things that only humans can do. And as we look at the communication aspect of working with donors and helping them to understand the essential nature of their role in the partnerships for that impact that you want to see, technology can assist with that. It can be a huge help. There are so many great things that tech allows us to do. What I see as a struggle with nonprofits is that there are so many tools and so many things they could be using that sometimes the tech is requiring more time and effort to use and to manage than the benefit that is being received, maybe because the team is smaller, or maybe because they don't have tech support to help them through some challenges that they might be encountering. And so, what I always want to caution for nonprofits, I would rather them use a few tools really well that then frees up the time for their staff to focus on those relational activities. If the tech then eats up all of your time because you're doing more tech and using more tools, and then it's not freeing you up, then you are losing out on that personal relationship that you can have with donors, and that's really going to affect that recurring giving and the loyalty and the deep partnership, which is what you want. So tech can help with those deep connections, but if it's pulling away from it, you might want to say, hey, how are these tools helping us rather than hindering us?
yeah, I software should be making our jobs easier, not harder.
Great points there. Well, now diving into the more technical aspect, what strategies help move donor relationships beyond one time gifts and into deeper mission driven partnerships? And I'll have Michelle start us off here.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the first thing is just making sure that giving is easy and that wherever you have giving opportunities, there is that option to be able to be a recurring donor. And so, take the friction out of it, make it really easy for your donors. But most importantly, trying to make that recurring donation be something that they feel connected. So, I use the term memberships, community, something where they feel they are in the middle of the fight to do whatever that social cause or educational cause is. And so they want to feel connected. They want to understand where their monies are going, how they're being used, and having things, even decals or something, that they can put on their cars, but so that they can, be the best advocate for you. I think, it's trying to build that connection will really help build your sustainer programs.
Thanks, Michelle. Ronald, anything to add to what Michelle said?
Yeah, I love Michelle. You're talking about recurring giving. I mean, because if you want to move a donor from one-off transactions, you have to have something that they can belong to long term, and that would be a monthly giving program. I just did a webinar, and we're kind of talking to our clients a lot right now on the concept of year end and then what you're doing in January, because this is kind of the time we're in right now. And you're going to get, first off, yeah, you want to stress recurring at year end if you can, but you're obviously going to get a lot of one-time donors. And that's, retention is bad nowadays. A lot of those are going to fall off. First time new one-time donors, only 25% or so are going to come back next year. So we've been talking to them a lot about conversion series. So we really like that as a strategy to convert the one-time giver to recurring. And really, it's really just 4 things that you really want to be thinking about: an extra thank you, an impact story, a testimonial from a donor, from a recurring donor that they know, oh, there's already people like me doing this, and then that official invite. And that could be across any channel that you're comfortable with: email, direct mail, SMS, whatever you're doing, but give them something long term that they can actually belong to and promote it. So.
Thanks, Ronald. Erin, anything to add?
Yes. I was thinking of that retention rate, somewhere around 20-25% for first-time donors will give again, and then 75 or whatever will never come back around, and that's so disheartening, especially for nonprofits that are wanting to grow their donor base and they aren't seeing donors stay with them. One of the things that I have found to be so helpful is making sure that donors are understanding clearly what the urgent cause is. What is it that we're solving by working together through this mission, through this nonprofit? So many times donors might think, oh, yeah, I saw this nonprofit or my friend donates or whatever. And they're like, yeah, I'll give 20 bucks, whatever. But if you are not, as a nonprofit, helping them to understand deeply that this problem in the world is something that we can solve when we work together, and this is the life change that we can have together, that communication part is what will move those donors past the, oh, do I really care? Or, oh, yes, these are my people. This is my cause. I want to be part of this. And so tying it back so the donor understands, oh, I'm going to see change happen when I partner. There's something about that. It makes it so much more personal. And the communication messaging really does make a difference there. So making it personal to the donor and then making them know that, making sure that they know we could not have this change unless you come along and be part of it.
Thanks so much, Erin. And lastly, Mark, any final thoughts here?
Yeah, I really appreciate all that's been said already. I would just, a simple point is ensuring that you're making the ask. And as Ronald said, an official invite through different channels, but whether that's reoccurring gifts, but having that conversation. And I think it's easy to say what partnership is, but really explain what partnership means for your organization. And again, just having those meaningful connections, you can have those really honest conversations through different channels. But again, I'll always come back to the personal touch, where you can give a personal touch and speak to them directly. That's really, really impactful for the donor.
All right. So this is the last question I will ask before opening it up to our wonderful audience. So this would be a great time to get those questions in so we can try to address as many as possible. For our next question, we have here, in a crowded communications landscape, what makes a message or campaign feel truly authentic and emotionally resonant to donors? And Ronald, I'll have you start us off with this one.
Sure. For me, when I think about as a donor and what we see our clients do a lot that I really like is pushing out the story of one person, one place, one thing that you're going to affect with your donation or that your donations have already affected if you're thinking about the retention side. You know, this is Max the dog who found a new home because of your donor. This is Carlos who now is in the shelter and getting the counseling. Put a real human story behind it, make it emotional. To me, that's really what moves the needle. Stats and you're going to feed X number of people. That's great. But if I actually hear a story about that one person who has gotten that meal and has really been impacted, that I feel that's more meaningful to me. I feel like I am going to make a difference in people like that person. So I would always lead with the story of one and be very emotional and intentional with your stories.
Thanks for starting us off, Ronald. Erin.
Well, the best messaging in creative campaigns are the ones that just scream the nonprofit's personality and their vibe and their tone. And what I mean by that is that it is created for that org and it allows something that's different about that org to come out. So this means that it's going to have to be something that's custom in-house. beautifully designed. Now, all that doesn't mean that it has to be pricey, but what it does mean is you have to take care to create a campaign that could not be used by another org. So, like, if you think of a campaign, it's like you could have any organization's name on this and it'd be like, yeah, it would work. You want it to be that no one else could use your campaign because it is so much part of who you are. And it has the words and the graphics and the photography and the execution that are uniquely you. And that's when donors feel like that is true and authentic and they want to be part of it.
Thanks so much, Erin. Mark, anything to add?
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Aaron. And I think about the AI messaging. Again, people are just utilizing that. But I think being able to take a message and make it sure that it's the authentic you as an organization to really drive what sets us apart, and how are we a trustworthy organization within the community. And again, I will just reiterate what Ronald said in regards to true impact stories that really resonate with your donor base. And again, it's probably, if you're serving a national organization, does it mean that maybe there needs to be some stories that are geographic to that particular region, and it's not the same. It's not the same story in different regions. You're maybe utilizing ones that really can resonate with the donor population in different regions.
Thanks, Mark. Michelle, any final thoughts here?
I think they've already touched on it. I'm on a panel with some, great experts here. But I think just to kind of jump onto one thing, make the donor the hero of the story in your communications, right? And so sometimes it's really important to share what the nonprofit does, but it's also just making that connection that you're the one that's doing this and what they're able to contribute. I think the other piece is leverage every touch point, right? Every time you have a touch point with a donor, that's your opportunity to build authenticity. I just have one small example. We work with a nonprofit that helps children. And so when they call in, the message that they hear is actually one of the children that they've helped that is in the wait time. And so, it's just building that voice and that authentic, moving from transactional to relationship building in every connection that you have.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Okay, so the moment that I'm sure many of you were waiting for, our Q&A portion. A reminder, you can continue to send in questions as we go through. We will work on answering as many as we can. We have a couple of questions from our pre-panel survey, so I'll just go ahead and continue on with that. So first off, we have here, what's one example of how donor feedback or data insights have directly shaped engagement strategy or innovation in your work? And I'll have Ronald start us over here.
Well, I might be a little different than the other panelists here. We run a fundraising platform. So donor feedback and the data from that we're always looking at, we're always trying to create a great experience, a great giving experience. Because for me, if you're thinking about this whole panel, we're talking about engagement, meaningful relationships. Well, for us, that really starts with how easy it is to give. That is your first interaction. You're hitting the website, you're making a gift. How easy is that? Did you feel valued in that? Did you feel seen? Did you feel thanked? How is that process? So if you kind of look at the last year or so, what are we hearing from donors through our clients? There's a lot about what someone mentioned before about meeting them where they are. So we're hearing a lot about payment methods. We're hearing a lot about wallets. We added that, this year, donor advised fund, being able to pay for that. That's something that's growing right now. And then one big stat that's kind of driven innovation with us is really hearing about consumers and donors. They want to self-serve. So we've really leaned into hard onto donor portals. If you've got that, you can push donors in there. That you can even use automation to do that. You still don't want to lose that human touch, but 80% of consumers want to self-serve. And so if you can give them the tools to be able to do that, again, you're freeing up your time to be able to do the human stewardship that you really want to do. So for us, it's about how easy can we get the giving experience, and donors are telling us again and again and again, they want easy. And then what can we allow them to do themselves that they want to do, so that when they do need us, we're available in a human way when they need us on the other things. So
Thanks for starting us off, Ronald. Michelle, what's one example here that you could share to us today?
I think it's really important, Ronald's already touched on it, just to have, the ability to make it very easy for them to connect with you, right? And so I think being able to meet them where they are. One story I always share is I know of a young person who ran in a marathon, and she was so excited to get pledges and get people on board. And then she never heard anything after the race. And so, it's really important that you're continuing to nurture and foster those people, especially early on. And to be honest, younger generations, like those are the ones that you really want to capitalize on and try to build a long lasting relationship with. So I think it's making sure that you're giving them instant and personalized engagement right after they've made that initial connection to you.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Mark, anything to add?
Yeah, I definitely think that data is great across the board, and when we can utilize it to see what has been effective in our strategy and what hasn't been effective, those are key points. But again, sometimes we can overcomplicate what we're creating, and so we want 300 data points on this particular thing. Maybe you're actually only needing 3 that could really drive impact. And again, I'm in the space that Ronald's in, so we use client experience data to make decisions. And I'm seeing the same thing in regards to, donor portals and being able to self-serve. But again, I think that's where, while we're creating those portals, it's up to the nonprofits themselves to keep track of data points where they can track activity and then say what is being effective in the activity that we're doing, whether that's email communication or personal touch, and how can we translate that? Understanding there's software out there that are building the tools that you're not having to think about. That's what we're thinking about, to make it easy on your donor to make a gift to your organization. But then you using the data to make sure that there is a personal touch behind that.
Thanks so much, Mark. And lastly, Erin.
Yeah, one example that came to mind, I was brought in for a nonprofit who realized, after getting some feedback from a potential donor, that they needed to spend a bit more time on customer journeys that were specific and segmented, because the messaging they were using was just the same message across the board. And come to find out, this potential donor was not feeling like they were hearing what they needed to know to make a key investment decision. And so this was a donor who had the potential to give a significant amount, and they just weren't hearing the right message. And so I was brought in to tease that out. Like, what is it that you're saying to people who want to make these significant gifts, and realizing that they need something different than everybody else. And lots of segments need something just a little bit different. And this is where tech and tools can really come into play and help you to provide a custom communications journey and experience, so that those donors are hearing what they need to hear, because they have a specific type of partnership in mind. And so, that's where tech really came into play. We used the messaging to then deliver a more personal experience, so that that donor could feel confident that, oh yes, what I want is exactly what's happening at this nonprofit, and I'm ready to partner.
Thank you for that, Erin. So we have one last minute question from our pre-panel survey right here, and I'm just going to read it out loud. But Pauline will also add that into the chat. So it says here, how do strategies for building bonds differ when engaging Gen Z and millennial donors compared to more traditional donor bases, particularly regarding digital platforms and expectations of transparency? So I'll have Erin start us off.
Ooh, that's a really good question. From a communication standpoint, when I think about those donor journeys and donor segments, you need to take the gen categories in mind as you are developing these, because uh, most nonprofits are dividing out their donor segments more by gift size. Some are doing it by a combo of gift size and maybe key motivations for how they give. But another layer of this is, how does the generation or the age affect their expectations and how you should be engaging with them? Now, as far as like digital tools and social engagement, that is something I think that we're finally at the point where all orgs are realizing we've got to do a dedicated effort here on engaging with the new tools. But balancing that out, how do we use the social versus what do we do with direct mail, and how do we use that, and how do these things go together? Again, I think if you have those donor journeys in place, and not only that, I think no matter what the generation, those donor relationships will only be as healthy as the systems you create to maintain the relationships. And that sounds kind of like it's opposing, but you can use all these tools and you can have all these ideas, but everybody's busy and swamped. And if you're going to engage with each segment according to what they need, you're going to need to have some pretty good systems in place for your team so that you keep on track and you are able to communicate with each segment in the way that they want to be communicated with. There's a lot to do, and there are a lot of segments to cover. And so you've got to have some good systems in place that keep you on track, because it's always going to be busy and you're going to feel swamped.
Great points there, Erin. What about you, Mark? Anything to add here?
I don't have a lot to add here. Besides, I think we can make a lot of assumptions about different generations, and I think that in order for us to really, we are all individuals. And I think to lump everyone in communication that's effective, I think that's why we need to engage with the donors at the individual level and get as much information about that person rather than generalize on how they want to be communicated with. But that's pretty much all I have to add. I'll defer to the panel here that may have more insight.
I'll actually just open this up to Ronald or Michelle. Anything you wanna add there?
I think the critical thing with, trying to hit, younger generations is to make sure that you offer several different payment options, which I know Ronald already talked about that. But traditional direct mail and checks probably isn't going to be where you're going to find those generations, right? And so it's really making sure that you have, easy social giving, optimizing influencers, depending on who your nonprofit is, social content, being able to build community. That's really important to those younger generations. They believe in causes, they believe in belonging. So, really trying to make those connections, but reach them where they're at and have those, the technologies such as, the different payment options are critical.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's obviously the kind of obvious things that we've been talking about: belonging and community, and certainly monthly giving speaks very well to younger generation. You're talking about, well, they don't have a lot of money right now, but $10 a month they can do, and they can still be part of the mission. I'm also going to share something in the chat here. My kids are in this generation, and one of the things that we raised them on was, you're going to take a percentage of your allowance and you're going to give. And what we kind of found out through them is that the same things mattered to them that mattered to all generations. A nice thank you, impact, maybe a perk that goes with the donation. So it's not that all that different, as Mark is saying. you can segment like crazy, but a lot of times a donor is a donor and they want the same love and care that you would give any donor. Just because they're young and they may only be able to do $5 a month, treat them like the major giver. And because those people grow into major givers over time. So.
All right, thank you so much, panelists. So we are getting to our last few minutes of questions with this amazing group. If we don't get to your question, or if you have questions specific to your organization, we want to make sure you get connected with the relevant team to answer them. So we have just sent a quick survey to you in the chat where you can indicate which panelists you particularly want to hear from after the session, as well as provide any feedback on the panel. I'll share your interest with the relevant panelists after this session. So all right, we are going to wrap up this portion of the panel now so we can stick to our schedule. I've had such a wonderful time hearing from our panelists today, and so I'm going to hopefully ask for a one final piece of insight from them all. So I'm going to start us off with Erin here. Looking ahead, what trend or innovation do you believe will most redefine how nonprofits build stronger bonds with their supporters? And please let our audience know where they can find you and your organization.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, one of the things that comes to my mind there, really, we've talked about it in all different ways, but I feel like nonprofits are uniquely designed and situated to provide that meaning that we're all looking for, and purpose and partnership with people. And it's like it's this place where we can all come together and create the type of world we want. Um, and I think that it is the primary place where we can work together and see change. So how is that building stronger bonds? I think by leaning into that and letting donors know this is the place, I think it will start to give donors that sense of agency, give citizens, people, residents a sense of agency, like, oh, we are able to make some change together, and we need more of that in the world. So I'm all for communicating and helping nonprofits do that in a clearer way. So yeah, thanks for having me on the panel, and people can find me at erinstraza.com. Super easy.
Thank you so much, Erin and Mark. Anything to add here? And please let our audience know where they can find you and or your organization.
Sure, thanks. I think, over the years working with nonprofits and my work at the foundation was always, we have all this data. We don't have the time, or we don't have the resources in order to analyze the data or or create an impact report that is meaningful. I believe with the data tools that are being created, the use of AI, being able to bring data together and create resources and create charts and graphs that are helpful and that are visually appealing is not far away from your fingertips. And I think that excites me, because it has been a gap in the industry. Certain nonprofits have the ability to do a lot of great things with data, and the smaller nonprofits have struggled to do that. And I think that their technology is providing tools that are bringing that equal playing field across the board, which is exciting, I think, to the field. You can find me at mark@akoyago.com, or you could visit akoyago.com to find out more about our software for private and community foundations.
Thanks so much, Mark. And Michelle.
I think what's going to evolve in the next couple of years is going to be technology and how to best utilize data. But at the end of the day, I think it's the core foundation that's going to really be the important part in the next couple of years, and making sure that that you're telling your story and that you're making your donors impact a part of that. And as long as you continue to do that and you are meeting your donors where they are, I think you'll continue to have great success with your mission. And you can reach me at cdsglobal.com. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Ronald, anything lastly to say?
Yeah, I think for me, I come back to monthly giving. I think that the trend, you got to jump on this trend. It's what's working right now. And I would encourage every nonprofit listening to become a recurring first fundraising organization. Tell your community that the best way that you can support us is through an ongoing recurring gift. And if you do that and you commit to it, then you will find your relationships with donors will be better. You'll have community, belonging, which is what donors want, and you'll have stable, reliable income, which in this economy where we're headed, that's what every nonprofit needs. And I'll drop links to where you can find me in the chat here. It's forgoodcause.com, or always happy to connect on LinkedIn. So thanks for having me.
All right, thank you so much, panelists. And that brings us to the end of today's panel. A huge thank you to our panelists for sharing their valuable insights. It's been a fantastic discussion. And thank you to everyone who joined us. We hope you're walking away with fresh ideas and practical takeaways to support the important work you do every day. We've got an exciting lineup of panels coming up in the next few months, and we'd love to see you there. Be sure to check out the NXUnite community platform or follow us on LinkedIn so you don't miss a thing. And even better, just go ahead and RSVP now. Once you're logged in, it only takes a click. It has been a pleasure speaking with you all. Thanks again and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.